Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a Christmas story that you've probably never heard before. It's not about epic blizzards, heartwarming miracles, or dramatic holiday showdowns. Instead, it's about a Christmas so unbelievably normal, so profoundly uneventful, that it became famous for its sheer lack of drama. This is the story of the extremely mild Christmas of 1623 in Plymouth Colony. To really get this, we need to picture the world of the Pilgrims. We often imagine their lives as a constant, brutal struggle against starvation, harsh weather, and disease. And in the beginning, it absolutely was. The first winter of 1620 was catastrophic. Nearly half of the Mayflower passengers died. The first Thanksgiving in 1621 was a moment of relief after a year of intense hardship, but by 1623, things were starting to change. They weren't exactly living in luxury, but they were stabilizing. They had learned how to plant corn, build sturdy homes, and navigate their new environment. The colony was growing, with new ships arriving like the Anne and the Little James, bringing more settlers and much-needed supplies. So, as December 1623 rolled around, the people of Plymouth weren't bracing for imminent doom. They were settling into a routine. And that winter, nature decided to give them a break. Historians, looking back at records and climate data, describe it as a perfectly average winter. There was snow, but not a crippling blizzard. It was cold, but not the bone-shattering freeze of their first year. The wind blew, as it does, with an unremarkable chill. Life was, for the most part, manageable. The settlers weren't huddled together fighting for survival. They were going about their daily duties with a quiet, practiced determination. This brings us to Christmas Day, December 25th, 1623. Now, it's important to remember who these people were. The Pilgrims were separatists, a radical faction of English Protestants. They believed the Church of England was still too much like the Catholic Church, and they rejected many of its traditions, including the celebration of Christmas. To them, Christmas was a popish invention, a man-made holiday with no basis in the Bible. They saw the festive celebrations back in England with feasting, drinking, and games as decadent and unholy. So, in Plymouth, December 25th was just another workday. Governor William Bradford made that very clear. On that Christmas morning, there were no stockings hung by the chimney with care. No festive carols were sung. The air wasn't filled with the scent of roasting goose. Instead, the sounds were of hammers hitting nails, saws cutting wood, and the quiet murmur of conversation about practical matters. The colonists were busy. Records suggest they spent the day on essential, if mundane, tasks. They repaired fences that had been weakened by the autumn winds. They mended tools that were vital for the upcoming planting season. They stirred pots of porridge, the simple, sustaining meal that was a staple of their diet. Perhaps the most exciting topic of conversation was the new storage shed they were planning. Should it be slightly wider to accommodate more grain? Or would a longer, narrower design be more efficient for organizing supplies? These were the pressing issues of the day. It was a day of labor, of practicality, of looking forward to the needs of the colony, not celebrating a holiday they had renounced. Governor Bradford himself noted with some satisfaction that work proceeded as normal, a sign that his community was holding fast to its religious principles, even in the New World. But amidst all this dutiful, unfestive activity, one man was keeping a record. His name was Elias Morton. We don't know a huge amount about Elias. He wasn't a governor or a military leader. He was just an ordinary settler, a man trying to make a life for himself and his family thousands of miles from home. And like many people of his time, he kept a diary. His entries were likely a mix of practical notes, personal reflections, and observations about the weather. On the evening of December 25th, 1623, after a long day of work, Elias Morton sat down, dipped his quill in ink, and wrote about his day. He didn't write about hardship or struggle. He didn't write about profound spiritual revelations. He didn't even complain about having to work on Christmas. Instead, he wrote a single, simple, and now legendary sentence. He described the day as being adequately pleasant. Adequately pleasant, let that sink in. Not wonderful, not joyful, not even nice, just adequate, sufficiently pleasant. It's the kind of phrase you might use to describe lukewarm tea or a movie you don't regret watching, but will forget by tomorrow. It's the absolute pinnacle of mildness. This wasn't a complaint. In the context of his world, adequately pleasant was actually pretty good. It meant nobody got sick. It meant the roof didn't leak. It meant they had enough food and the weather wasn't trying to kill them. It was a quiet acknowledgement of stability, a luxury they hadn't always known. For centuries, Elias Morton's diary sat gathering dust, just one of thousands of obscure historical documents. His Christmas entry was buried among notes about planting schedules and fence repairs. But as historians began to piece together a more detailed picture of early American life, this little entry started to stand out. Why? Because it was so beautifully, perfectly, hilariously boring? In a historical narrative that we often fill with high-stakes drama, Morton's entry was a dose of pure, unadulterated reality. It became famous not for what it said, but for what it didn't say. It was a testament to the mundane truth of history that most days, even Christmas days, are not epic. They're just days. This little sentence has become a favorite among historians and history buffs. It's been cited as perhaps the least eventful Christmas note ever recorded in early American history. It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just made up of big battles and famous speeches. It's also made up of countless, adequately pleasant days of people repairing fences, discussing storage sheds, and feeling a quiet sense of contentment that things are, for the moment, okay. It captures the spirit of the Plymouth colony in 1623 better than any dramatic tale could. They were building a community, and that work was often slow, methodical, and profoundly ordinary. What I love about this story is how it humanizes the Pilgrims. We tend to see them as stoic, two-dimensional figures in black hats. But Elias Morton's diary entry gives us a glimpse of a real person. A person who, after a day of physical labor, felt a simple, understated section with his life. Adequately pleasant was his version of a sigh of relief. It was the quiet hum of a community that was finally finding its footing. The great drama of survival was over. The long, slow, and sometimes boring work of building a society had begun. And on December 25, 1623, that work was going just fine. It was an unremarkable day that, through one man's perfectly bland description, became truly remarkable. So next time you're having a quiet, uneventful holiday, maybe one that feels just adequately pleasant, remember Elias Morton. You're not having a boring day. You're participating in a long and storied historical tradition of things just being okay, and sometimes that's the best gift of all. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this little trip back in time to a very normal Christmas, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the strange and wonderful corners of history. Let me know in the comments what you think is an adequately pleasant day a win. See you in the next video.